Hey everybody, thank you for joining me today. My name is Buffy. I am recording this video live today as a part of my 300-hour advanced yoga teacher training with Edge Yoga School. Each of us as students bring some content to the table to share with all the other students undergoing this online yoga teacher training. So I am happy to be bringing some content to my nap time series that I record during nap time each day. Today we will be discussing stand-up paddleboard yoga, which is something I love, I'm really passionate about, and I'm excited to bring to you. In these videos, when I describe different types of yoga, I bring all the question words. So why, who, where, what, and how much to charge, things like that. So I'm just speaking solely from experience today. Some of my other videos I reference a lot of books, but this is just what I've learned in the process of hosting these types of events, and I hope that it proves beneficial to you if it's something that you're interested in. If you've never tried stand-up paddleboard yoga, it's so fun. Get out on the water, borrow a board, excuse me, I have the hiccups, or rent one, and I'm sure you'll love it. I especially find it fun because when you get kind of bored on your mat, or like you're just kind of in a routine or a rut with yoga on your mat, you can really challenge yourself in new ways and challenge your balance in new ways with a paddleboard. So why do we practice stand-up paddleboard yoga? Nature immersion, for one. I love nature, and it is incredible to be under the expansive sky and all of space, and just, you know, the water itself holding you, and the trees all around you if you're in a lake or in the ocean, all the animal life abundantly around you. It's just a beautiful space to practice. I love to practice outside and on the mat or on the board. It's just such a healing space to be surrounded by and held by Mother Nature and by the elements. You really get to connect with the elements, especially with water. I always bring my students an introductory kind of yoga nidra, just helping them come into the space that we're in. So we delve into our five senses and we pick up on all these beautiful animal sounds and smells of the water and the earth, and the sensation. We put our palms in the water lying down on the board to start, and we just feel the water holding our hands. You know, we're not having to hold the hands up, they're just floating and being held and supported by the water. I remind them of our connection to the water element, how we're all connected, we're all flowing with water. If you want to know more about water, you can watch my video on the second chakra that I recorded this week, the water chakra. So yes, there's so much you can bring to them as far as how we're connected with water. It's also really fun to challenge yourself on a stand-up paddleboard, and it's humbling at times. So if you're feeling kind of proud and cocky in your yoga practice, get out on a paddleboard and fall in a couple times. You'll sober up. If you feel like you're advancing to the next level, just go get on a board. And then it's also rewarding. So the balance is that you try and practice and get good at on a board, it's super challenging, and it's rewarding to like get out there and do crow or like a headstand or anything. Can just be like, yeah, that was cool, I can't believe I could do that. So that's the why. We're on to who. So who is this for? It's for anyone who can sign a waiver and swim and has a board. If you have boards to rent, that's another story, but yeah, basically anybody who can swim and wants to do it and has a board and signs a waiver. Make sure you have a waiver. So why, who, where? You can do this on a lake, in the ocean. Make sure it's calm water, like in a my brain is not thinking of certain words today. Like just in a cove or somewhere where there's no waves. It's gonna bother me. Okay, do not practice in a pool. You'll hit your head on the side when you fall off, and don't practice in shallow water or next to like a dock if you're in a lake. I've had students try to go stand up using a dock, and then you could fall they didn't fall, but you know, you have to think of things like that. Don't let yourself practice in too shallow of water, because if you fell off and like got impaled by a stick, I mean, a lot of things can happen on the water. So what you will need for this: paddle, a stand-up paddleboard, a waiver. You'll want to give some brief instructions on how to paddle at the beginning of class, and enough time for everybody to get comfortable. So if you're having, say, 10 students join you, they're all going to be at different levels and have had different experiences with water in their lives. So some people might take more time to get comfortable standing on a board on the water. Some people have better balance. Some people have been practicing yoga more or balancing postures more, and they're going to just jump right on and be a pro. Other people are going to stay on their knees the whole time. So you want to give them a couple of tips, like just how to hold the paddle, and how to measure how tall to make your paddle, and which way, you know, turns you right and left, and how to turn around and slow down, and just giving them like a brief tutorial on that is helpful, so that they feel comfortable as you make your way to where you're going to anchor down for your yoga session. So enough time to do that is important. I try to schedule enough time. My classes are usually 2 hours, so it's like a little get in the water time, get to know you, a little bit of instruction time, a little bit of paddle time out to our spot, and then an hour flow, and then the paddle time back. So usually ends up being 2 hours, and you'll, other things you'll need are anchors. Each person needs an anchor with a rope so that they're anchored down. Otherwise, your board's just going to all float away from each other, and they won't be able to hear the instructor's voice. And that even happens with anchors, like they're not anchored good, and or in the middle of class somebody's floating away. It's really disruptive, and it's usually the student is embarrassed, and they kind of personalize it like they did something wrong. So when you do anchor before you start class, make sure everybody is anchored and ready to flow. You need those waivers, and then I suggest like a waterproof camera or like one of those cases so you can get some cool pictures for advertising. How much? So we did why, who, where, what, and now on to how. How much? I generally will charge between $20 and $40 depending on the location. If I'm having to rent equipment, I went ahead and bought anchors on Amazon. They're not super expensive, and they paid for themselves after the first time we went out. Again, like a 2-hour session, so you decide, and depending on where you're at in the world, I'd say like $20 or $40 for a 2-hour session on the water. I mean, to me, it's just like, oh, you want to pay me for this? I'm out here having fun with you, you know. So taking a break from home life, work life. So yeah, I mentioned this on my kids yoga video. I use postermywall.com for all of my graphics and posters and advertising. It's just free and easy, and they have templates, different fonts, and you can upload your own photos, things like that. So how to do this? First of all, keep an open mind, and keep in mind those various levels and fears and expectations that I mentioned. Allow time for everybody to get comfortable before you take off across the water. You don't just want to jump on the board and be like, okay, let's go, I got this spot for us. And then some people are just kind of, give options right off the bat. You can say you can stay on your knees and paddle, you know, just in a knee stand kind of, or you can stand up, show them how to stand up. I find it's easiest to stand up coming from tabletop to down dog, and then walking the feet forward to the center of the board. You want your feet wider than hip distance, soft knees, and it's just a perfect mountain pose. It's like so cool because you have to do a perfectly aligned and straight mountain pose in order to stay balanced. That's what's good about the paddleboard. It's like showing you how you should be on your mat on land, because you have to be balanced. Okay. Instruct them on how to row, turn, and get back on the board. So maybe jump off, show them it's just water. You know, it's not a big deal if you fall in. Don't be embarrassed. Everybody's usually wants to fall in because it's summertime and it's hot. Maybe jump off the board and show them how to get back on. It's never graceful. I was going to say gracefully get back on, but it's never graceful. Just get back on the board. Reassure all of your students that the worst that can happen is you fall in the water and cool off. So I usually say something like that. Encourage them to practice before the class. So if somebody signs up, make sure you have a registration process so you know how many anchors and boards and everything you need. If somebody signs up, maybe they say, I'm brand new to this, I'm excited to try it. Say, hey, maybe get out on the water and try it a few times, because it is better. Most of the people that come to a stand-up paddleboard yoga class are already comfortable on a stand-up paddleboard. So to have a brand new person, it's their first day on a paddleboard, it's their first time doing yoga, like those two combinations, they're going to go slower than everybody. And that's fine. Everybody's different place in their journey, but just maybe reach out to them before if anybody mentions anything like that, or maybe you want to have that as part of your registration form. Like, is this your first time doing yoga? Is this your first time on a paddleboard? If they answer yes, you could just gently reach out and say, hey, I encourage you to like get out and try it on the water, or do you want to meet up before class and I can kind of coach you through whatever. That's up to you. It's just easier on the group when everybody's more like closer to the same level, if possible. Do your research. So know where you're going to go on the lake or in the ocean or wherever. Like go out beforehand and pick a spot that's serene, and you know, I like to be surrounded by trees and birds nesting, and make sure it's shallow enough for your anchors to reach but deep enough that you won't be injured. So go out before, don't just kind of wing it with that, because things can go wrong. And then you just paddle out and you flow, and then allow time for the round trip. So you want to respect people's time. That's part of non-stealing. And make sure that you work in enough time, check your time for everybody to get back to the dock or wherever. And, you know, if you say it's a 2-hour class, make it a 2-hour class, not 2.5. As far as which postures you can offer in a flow on a stand-up paddleboard, it's kind of intuitive. The more you try it, the more you'll understand the unique limitations and opportunities of the stand-up paddleboard yoga. You know, just to run through a few, I usually start lying down in that yoga nidra, and then we move to banana pose, which is a yin posture. I do like a mix of yin and vinyasa, super slow vinyasa, I guess hatha. But banana pose and child's pose is fine. Tabletop, any variations on tabletop, cat-cow. You can do low lunges with the knee down on the board. The warriors, standing pose, forward folds, any seated poses, seated forward fold, seated twists, you know, mostly anything seated you could do. You could do mostly anything from knee stand. Camel's really fun and like a little bit challenging, and when people do it on the board, if they're kind of newbies and they do that, you can tell they're like, I just did that on a paddleboard. So it's kind of cool. Squatting, malasana, you can cue for crow as an option. It's fun. I typically will not cue headstand unless they've come out with me a lot. It's very challenging. Always, as always, you're going to offer modifications and teach to the middle of your crowd. Move slowly. So, you know, maybe you go out and practice more often than your students. So maybe you have mastered flowing on a stand-up paddleboard a little more than them. But go slow. Make sure that you're speaking slowly and giving them time to move. Like getting to forward fold on a stand-up paddleboard from down dog takes longer and more steps and more wobbling than on a mat. Things like that. And then extend your shavasana. I invite you to offer like a 10 or 15 minute shavasana where people can just be held and supported on the water. And just really soak in the fresh air. So yeah, that is my video on stand-up paddleboard. That's pretty much all I have to offer there, unless you want to come out to one of my classes. There's some stuff online, like you can watch and find videos. I'm just self-taught, and through experience and mistakes and successes, that's where I've come to know all the information I just presented to you. I hope it proves beneficial for you and that you're enjoying your journey. in learning to teach yoga on a stand-up paddleboard. Namaste.